You guys hear me okay? Yeah? Am I going to use this or that? Oh, okay. Stereo. Okay. So you guys are the only thing between me and vacation. I'll be on the beaches of Punta Mita, Mexico tomorrow. So I'm hoping to get this over with as quickly as possible. I also have a cold, so for those whose hands I shook, you're going to have that. Last about a week. No, I think I'm over the contagious period, and I know Michael Arrington tweeted about some hand soap that kills the rhinovirus. So if anyone has that, I will use that after my talk. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the apps marketplace and about Google Apps, and I guess I should back up a little bit and tell you what I do at Google. And Google Apps is the part of Google that deals with user content in the cloud. We used to be defined by what we weren't. We used to be known at Google as NSA, which stood for Not Search or Ads. Search and ads are the parts of Google that you're familiar with, presumably, and help drive Google's business. And for some amount of time, NSA was kind of this odd collection of things like Gmail and Blogger that just didn't fit into the other categories. I think increasingly we've been finding our stride and creating a very coherent suite of products that work together to provide a lot of value for users. These include things like Gmail. Do we have any Gmail users in the house? Yay, great. I'm glad you're familiar with these things. How about Google Docs? People use Google Docs? Fantastic. I think especially for startups, Docs are incredibly valuable. Google Talk, etc. And there's, icons here. I don't know what question mark and exclamation point are, but I'm sure they're great products in the Google Apps suite. But increasingly, I think businesses are...
you don't know that, we
you don't know, okay. Businesses are finding value in these apps as well as individuals. And we have a slogan, which is we build apps for people, not markets. I came up with that. I like it a lot. And it speaks to the fact that I think the information needs are pretty much the same, whether you're a soccer dad trying to coordinate the busy schedule of all the players and coaches and trying to get people to the game, or a busy executive trying to get people to the meeting. The information overload that we're all experiencing in our lives is really a similar problem, whether you're in a personal context or work context, and I think increasingly even the lines between those two parts of our lives are blurring. And so part of Google Apps is to take our products like Gmail, like Docs, and harden them for the enterprise and small business sectors and deploy them to businesses as a business for Google. And this has been a very successful and growing part of Google's business. And you can see here that big companies, enterprises, names you've heard, are increasingly making the bet on cloud computing and on Google Apps and climbing aboard. They've gone Google. 25 million users, and I think even more impressive is 2 million businesses. And in addition to the logos and names that you recognize there, there's also a long tail of startups. I think where we really shine is in the small workgroup setting. So we scale, from individual use right on up to tens of thousands of people in some of these organizations. The business is growing. We're excited about it. We're committed to it. And it's one of the more interesting parts of Google right now, I think. One thing that we found is that over the course of the last year, the nature of the conversation has changed. I think for some amount of time people were asking, is the cloud safe? Is the cloud secure? Is it a better way? And I think by and large, most CIOs are kind of over the hump with that, and they recognize that there are many, many advantages to this method of software as a service and providing this value to their users. And one thing we like to say is that we spoil people at home. They get a taste of Gmail and what's possible, and you can't impoverish them in the workplace anymore. They can't go into the workplace and use 20-year-old paradigms of how software is supposed to work. And it's been a very effective means of kind of turning things upside down. It used to be 20 years ago that businesses were the place where you had high-speed connections and the state-of-the-art software, and at home the personal computer was kind of the little cousin of that technology. And I think in many ways the world has turned upside down, and at home now people have the most powerful computing grid available to them in systems like Google, and it's at work where they're suffering through older, staler technology. We want to change that. So Google Apps fulfills some of what users want, but there's a lot of white space there. It's become clear to us that we're not going to do it all. So we've extended the suite, we've added more and more capability and more coherence to our product, but it became obvious to us that the number of user requests was going to far exceed our own ability as a company to service them. And these include things, some of these we fulfill, spreadsheets and mail, but there are other things like human resources apps, CRM apps, expense reporting, things like that, that we just aren't going to build ourselves. And so what we thought about doing was creating a platform, creating a marketplace where independent software developers, big and small, could add value on top of our platform, reach our base, fulfill these customer needs in places where Google wasn't going to be a principal. For developers, this is great because we have that channel. We have that opportunity to help you as startups reach an audience of tens of millions of users. We have billing relationships with these users. We can make it very, very easy in terms of marketing and exposing your value to them. Again, these are the kinds of things we provide. We want to make it extremely easy for these domain experts to come in and fill these functionality gaps in our suite and do it leveraging all of the infrastructure work and investment that we've made. So hence the Google Apps Marketplace. We launched this at a campfire event about 2 weeks ago. So this is very, very breaking news, hot off the press. Incredible early success with this. It far exceeded our own expectations, and we're really excited to see what people will do next. So the Apps Marketplace allows you to find and install integrated apps. And typically for Google Apps, there is an administrator who controls the services and the provisioning of those services for the domain through a control panel. And the Google Apps Marketplace allows that administrator to install new apps from third parties that are easy for those third parties to build, integrate with the rest of the Google data and technology, and then sell. The first point about the Apps Marketplace is this is not a prescriptive model for how the app should be built. In fact, we have some tools like Google App Engine, but that's not required. You can host this on any service. It could be an Amazon Web Services application. We make no restrictions on that. Any provider you want, whatever makes sense for you. Integrate your app. We do provide these touch points in integration like single sign-on, consistent navigation so that users can find it, and then the product APIs, the GData APIs that allow your app to seamlessly integrate with the data that resides for users in our cloud. And then, of course, sell your app. So again, the reach of Google Apps is 2 million businesses, 25 million users. We have a reseller network that can also help promote this. And wherever we go, we take you with us. How do we do that from a business sense? There's a one-time fee of $100, extremely modest, and then a 20% revenue share starting in Q2. So there's a lot of companies that have been part of our early program and climbed on board. These are companies big and small. I see folks like Intuit there, obviously big. They were part of our launch event. But also companies that I certainly haven't heard of that are taking advantage of the leverage we're providing to help reach avid audience of people that want their stuff. It's easy to do. Again, we were able to get up to 70 apps very, very quickly because of the well-defined nature of our APIs in the platform. Okay, in terms of the integrate, I mentioned single sign-on navigation. All of these apps have very well-formed APIs that allow user data to flow seamlessly in and out of them, generally along standards where standards exist. If not, then we'll create ad hoc means and data structures to make that data portable. And this is really just the beginning. We're very much listening to our developers and helping extend the platform based on their needs and the feedback that they're giving us. So please consider this a work in progress and very early days for us. So if there are things that you'd like to see here that aren't here, we're very, very open to providing them. The actual implementation for this, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, because one thing I wanted to do was tell you about the apps marketplace, because we're excited about it, but also leave plenty of time for a fireside chat where we can talk about anything Google and beyond. We talk about buzz and voice and lots of fun stuff. But the XML manifest file basically allows the developer to specify how they want to be installed in the central control panel that the CIO or the administrator for a domain relates to the Google Apps through. So you can install your app. It's very simple to define where your app lives. Again, it doesn't have to be on any specific hosting provider. You can install that app within this persistent navigation metaphor, so you click on the More button and that app is installed and accessible to all users within that domain. You can specify extensions here, and single sign-on allows for seamless integration, so users are not prompted again and again to sign on as they move through the suite of apps. It's very seamless using OpenID. The data is secure through OAuth, so administrators basically grant access. In the manifest here, you'll see that each app specifies exactly what user data they will touch, and the administrator can see that this is an app that needs to integrate with user calendar data. Do you approve, yes or no? And therefore, there's no surprises in terms of the trust model. We're using standards like OAuth to grant permission and provisioning of these apps within a trusted space. So that's about all I wanted to say about the apps marketplace. It's really new. I wanted to bring that information to you guys as startups. I hope you guys will find this interesting. It's very new for us. It's something we want to hear feedback on. With that, I think I'll invite Dave back up. We'll take any questions on the apps marketplace or Google Apps. And apps, even beyond Google Apps, I'm going to be much more versed in answering questions about Google Apps than I am things like China. But I'll just be very transparent with you guys. If you stray outside of things I can comment about, I'll let you know. So Dave?
All right.
Sure.
So I'm going to be drawing on my handy iPaper pad, courtesy of Peter Rosberg. So if any of you want one of these, it's really life-size, very functional, and it's available today.
How much?
$4.99. $4.99.
It's cheap.
Free
Bradley, I
gift.
guess you started off by naming a bunch of different products that Google is offering that I actually do use. I guess one of the things that you guys launched most recently, to much fanfare, both positive and negative, was Buzz. And I actually think that I want to commend Google for actually taking some risk, because I haven't seen Google take as much risk with launching new products, and for a big company that's actually kind of a scary thing. There was definitely some privacy things that came up out of that. There was some cool innovation that came up out of that. What's been kind of your experience with Buzz over the last couple of weeks, and how does that sort of fit into the overall strategy for you launching new products that are maybe more in the social space than Google has done in the past?
Well, we're really excited about Buzz, and I think if I look back on the last 6 weeks, the thing that has me most excited is the way that the team is working and the way they're responding to the opportunities in front of them, especially within the first 48 hours when there was a lot of concern about the product. The team, did extraordinary engineering feats to push versions of the software that address those. And I think you've seen over the course of the last 6 weeks since Buzz has been out, that people are now, the tenor of the conversation has changed, and people are talking about the product, beginning to do integrations with the product, and as we launch more featureful APIs, you'll see even more of those. It's actually great to see the team and the way that the team is gelling around this opportunity. And it's a broader experience than just the Buzz team themselves. I'm really proud of those guys and the kind of greater Gmail team around them. But it's really all of Google beginning to think about the opportunity that social brings. And it's extremely encouraging and gratifying to see the company stepping up, as you said, taking risks, but also working well together across the many different parts of Google.
So, I mean, I guess one thing that I would draw a little bit of a parallel is that, you know, a lot of people gave Facebook a lot of hell when Beacon came out, and they also faced a lot of privacy concerns, but one of the things that people don't always connect the dots on is out of Beacon came Facebook Connect, which has actually had quite a large amount of following and adoption, and, you know, probably represents some pretty significant things for them in their long-term strategy. Where do you guys see sort of, I think Google often gets a lot of criticism for not getting social, and you guys are really taking some risks by trying to, launch Buzz and other products out of Gmail to go after that market. What do you guys see as the potential benefit if you're able to get more of that market, opportunity and start to be recognized for social things? Like, where does that actually drive value and innovation and opportunity for Google?
Well, I think it's clear that we can't achieve Google's mission of organizing the world's information, making it universally accessible and useful without caring about people and social and the connections between people. So it's not a lark. I mean, in some ways, PageRank itself, we were talking about this morning, is a social signal. It's typically webmasters, which are individuals that are building links that describe importance, or you can derive importance from those. So in many ways, going all the way back to the PageRank algorithm, we have looked at social signals and derived value from those that we return back to users. So I think what's interesting about the Google approach, and it's very, very early days for Buzz, and I think the initial product that we put to market is not the full realization of our opportunity or plans in the space. But thinking about making, for instance, following, the gesture of expressing interest, something that might be less Boolean. So right now, if I follow Dave, I got to get all that crap as well. There's the gems.
I mean, that's all quality. That's all quality.
And wouldn't it be great if there was kind of a personal relevance that allowed me to get the parts of your life that I might be interested in and filter out, most of it. That would be awesome. And,
I resemble that part.
Yeah, indeed. Google is really good at relevance and ranking. It's one of our core competencies, and I think that's something we want to bring to this space. And I think also thinking about following as kind of a persistent expression of attention that goes beyond friending or even a social connection. So I ought to be able to follow nodes in an attention graph that are not just people. People are extremely interesting, and that's certainly something Buzz does well, but imagine following a product, a place, a brand, and I think Twitter has done a great job of this in the sense that their profile is really a proxy for an entity. It is a very thin schema associated with a node in Twitter, and that has allowed bots and all kinds of value to be derived from that. I think if you look at things like Google Reader, which in some ways are also long-term expressions of interest and attention, these come to bear on the problem, and ultimately we'd like to provide something which is a tool for managing attention. And we feel like there's too many inboxes that we all live in today. There's your mail, or probably several mail accounts, your personal mail, your work mail. There's the social networking silos, which trap information and force me to kind of dance around and log into various places on the internet. There's kind of financial transactions, which are siloed and trapped. There's all kinds of silos. I have so many inboxes to deal with and so few tools to help me manage my life across that. And I think there's an opportunity there to really return time really, back to people's lives. If we can do a good job of helping people deal with this information overload and help bring the right information to them in the right moment, there's a real value there.
So, I mean, I think one thing that, a lot of people definitely know, Google dominates search and does, huge amounts of revenue and monetization and discovery via search. You guys are making a big bet on Android and sort of a lot of the mobile category. But I really feel like kind of what's overlooked a lot of times is Gmail and the opportunity that's coming out of that. And like, to me, again, the thing that was kind of cool and interesting about launching Buzz, was that you used Gmail as a launch platform for that product. Right, and got fairly significant, at least single-digit million user adoption in really, really short order, maybe even double-digit million. And you also introduced kind of this. Yeah, I already tried to grill him on that. He's not going to give that up, so I can guess at it. But the thing that I thought was really cool about that you touched on was the auto-follow function, and I kind of wanted to see where do you guys see that? I don't know if that's something that's still sort of tied into innovations you guys are planning to come out of that. And so for people who weren't familiar with that, it was the immediate instantiation of friends based on sort of understanding of your Gmail interaction and other, iGoogle, etc., calendar kind of things that you're doing. Which for me was great because I didn't have to go add 50 to 100 friends to sort of make that function useful. What's your opinion on auto-follow? I know you got privacy concerns and feedback that came out of that, but do you still see that as innovation you want to push? Or are you kind of pulling off the gas on that?
I think the general trend of making it easy for people to connect to the people and information that they want to is something we're not pulling off the gas on. That's something we can do really, really well, and I think we've really just scratched the surface. Autofollow was really misunderstood, and I think a lot of things in Buzz were misunderstood, and I think we've made a lot of amendments and corrections to the product to preclude that misunderstanding. But as an example, the auto-following relationship was a completely private gesture between the two individuals, similar to chat. If I email someone a lot in Gmail, those individuals can appear on each other's chat roster. That's a private acknowledgement of the relationship that's building between those two individuals. I think there are a lot of signals that can be returned back to users and put to work for them. And obviously, in terms of privacy, we need to be very explicit, very verbose, and very careful to ensure that users understand what data they choose to put to work in service of helping find people, build connections, etc. And so, with an abundance of caution, we may have even overcompensated, but we want to make sure that users feel entirely comfortable and clear. And things like the Google Privacy Dashboard and exposure of your contacts in the settings pane in Gmail and things like that, we've tried to find every opportunity to disclose that and give users a chance to edit, review, and make sure their comfort level is suitable.
So, I guess one other piece of that I find interesting is that, again, you get criticism for maybe not being so social, but Gmail is basically, I would say, the dominant hosted email product on the web right now. Yahoo still has a large amount of market share, but if you look at growth, it certainly seems like Gmail is growing much faster than Yahoo right now. Hotmail also has a lot of users, but probably has neutral or negative growth, and I'm not sure what the numbers are on AOL, but definitely of those four groups of large hosted email carriers, Yahoo may be number one right now, but Gmail seems to be growing at a much faster pace, and you guys are doing a lot of interesting stuff in Gmail Labs. How much of that are you planning to open up, or can you talk a little bit about where you guys are heading with Gmail as a platform and maybe calendaring tied into that, and the availability of that data for third parties, I guess, is maybe the other piece that I think is interesting.
Yep. I think you're right. I think it's amazing the growth that we're seeing in Gmail in light of the fact that email is a 30-year-old market in some ways, and even webmail is one of the earliest web apps that we saw out there. And it's a testament to the innovation and the leadership of the Gmail team. And I think a lot of that has been expressed through labs. We're trying a lot of risky, creative, interesting things in labs, and it gives us a means of finding an opt-in audience. And it's really hard to change a product with an avid base. I kind of liken it to innovating on a pacemaker, like would you really want somebody to, try out their new algorithm on a pacemaker? People not only live in Gmail, they depend on Gmail. They need Gmail to serve them and serve their information needs.